I have to get a little bit of the information out of the way on behalf of the fire chief. There are 3 exits, 2 on this side, 1 at the back, and 1 here. We have a 1-stage alarm. If the alarm goes off, I would ask you to leave the building in an orderly fashion. And Lloyd tells me I need to tell you where the washrooms are as well, out through that door. And welcome to the Brighton and Crammy Chamber of Commerce All Candidates meeting. I'm Don Parks, I'm the past president of the Chamber. I'm here with Burke Friedrichheit, who's going to be my timekeeper, with Sherry Hamilton, the manager of our chamber, and I'm not sure where she is, perhaps outside making sure nobody else comes in because we're at capacity, which is, by the way, 258 seated and 20 plus standing. And I also have James Firth, who is our sound man. He's also told me he's prepared to be the bouncer. And that means that Burke, James, and myself are the ones who have the right to shut off the mic. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. I have to turn the page to read him. The candidates have drawn numbers to the positions you see in front of you. Each will have 2 minutes to deliver their platform, after which we will entertain questions from the floor. You'll be asked to line up at the center where the mic is here. You'll be given 45 seconds to ask a question. Each candidate will have a minute to answer. We will be strictly holding you to the time, so please have a question ready when you come up, or at some point I may ask, your question is? And yes, I'm doing that just to make sure we get through questions rather than have people stand on a soapbox and tell us just how horrible things are in this community, when they really aren't. At around 8:20, I'm going to determine how many more questions we'll allow. We'll be permitting 1 question per person unless there's no one in line. I don't want any one individual to hog the microphone. After the last question, the candidates will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. They will also be available after to answer and discuss issues individually as we have the hall until 9:30. Please keep in mind that this is not a complaint session, but an information session where you have an opportunity to learn more about your candidates and help you decide who you will vote for and who's going to serve you for 4 years. Finally, please respect these people for the courage they have in running for council. If you don't particularly... I'm going to follow James's lead here. If you don't particularly like the format that I've just given you, I'll give you a minute to stand up and disappear. Thank you. Let's begin.
Good evening. My name is Craig Kerr. It's a truism that elections are all about change. And one of the most important things that I've learned in my community service is that change in our community is constant. The many committees, boards, and agencies that I've served on during the last 2 terms have the primary responsibility of managing change effectively to ensure its positive impact on our community. And it's also very clear that communities evolve over 10, 15, 20-year time horizons. And over the last 2 terms of council, we have adopted several long-term plans, such as the strategic plan, the community development plan, the Parks, Trails, and Green Space plan, the fire master plan, and several others. And these plans are all the framework within which council and staff must operate, and they provide the constant vision for council on how the community should evolve. And I'm familiar with all of these plans, and I will work diligently with all council members to continue implementing them. But it's also important to understand that the short-term pressures of change must not be allowed to dilute that vision. Another very key accomplishment that we've had has been our success in forming partnerships with the Greater Quinte Economic Region and with Northumberland County. I've been proud that I've been participating in building these partnerships that are so important to our future prosperity and growth. And I will continue to make economic development my prime focus if re-elected. I look forward to working with a new council that will bring the fresh ideas. I bring a strong sense of experience, and I believe completely in a collaborative working process with council and with our partners. Together, we will continue to enhance that vital quality of life and sense of place that is the hallmark of any modern, sustainable community. I thank you.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Laura Vink, and I thank you even for the opportunity of being here tonight and to run for the councillor for the municipality of Brighton. I'm a longtime resident of Brighton. I've lived here for about 35 years. I'm married, raised a couple of kids here, and I love our town of Brighton and have a strong desire to make a difference in our community. I will approach the job with commitment, thoroughness, and integrity. The last 20 years, I've been busy raising my kids and working, but I found time to be involved in soccer, our local church group, and also have participated in Christmas at Presqu'Île, Apple Fest, and the market when there was one. Currently, I work for Quinte Christian High School in Belleville as a financial administrator. I work with financial statements, budgets, and controlled spending on a regular daily basis, and I hope to use those skills if elected. I also regularly work alongside volunteers and committees. I'm new to municipal politics. If elected, there will be much for me to learn, but I assure you I will dedicate myself to the task.
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Andreas Becker. First off, forgive me, I'm better at talking with people than at people. However, I'll give it my best shot. I'm not as ill as I was last time either. You may know Andreas Becker from his 2 years through Brighton Chamber of Commerce. You may know Andreas Becker through his store on Main Street. You may know Andreas Becker through the Quinte Business Achievement Awards. You may know Andreas Becker through Northumberland Tourism and Economic Development. You may know Andreas Becker through the Brighton DBIA. These are all groups that I've been involved with. Groups that include the Brighton Arts Council and others in this community in the time that I have been here. Some of you may even just know me from conversations that we've had. Most importantly, there are a few of you that know me. Some of you may know somebody that knows me. As your counselor in the future, some of the things that I would bring to the table are the skills that I learned when I was involved in creating and bringing a community to having its own mayor and council when I lived in British Columbia. As a counselor for your community, I would bring to the table mediation skills and all manner of other things that I had learned, such as assembling the council in another community. I was the past president founding for the Riding Association in Marc-Aurèle-Fortin in Quebec, and that's all I have to say up there. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Huizinga. I'm also running for council, and I just wanted to give a brief introduction to myself. I don't know how many of you were at the last session, but I need to clarify a couple things because I was in the doghouse afterwards. I have been married almost 20 years, not 19. And I've lived in Brighton since 2006, not 2008. So, but gratefully my wife corrected me on those mistakes. I've worked for Correctional Service of Canada for 18 years now, pretty much my entire time, both working out west, where I spent my first 9 years in Drumheller, Alberta, and now working up at Warkworth. I've spent most of my time very involved in union activities, as well as being a advocate towards health and safety, not only for the staff that work at the institution, but for the public as a whole. In 2009, we had a campaign where there were discussions about reduction on staff. We put on a very good information session, and to date, none of those positions have been removed. We all think that they're very important as far as public safety goes. As far as what I can bring to the council, I have a willingness and open mind to work with other people. I have, through my various committees and stuff at work, I have a good understanding of not only how government framework operates and that kind of thing, but also working collaboratively as a group. I guess just quickly, things that I think are important right now is bringing the council back into one cohesive unit, fiscal responsibility, where our monies are going, and I'm out of time. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Ostrander. My thanks to the Chamber for putting on tonight's All Candidates meeting, and congratulations to all the candidates for standing up for election this year. I truly wish you all the very best. Tonight is not a night to talk about what has been, but what will be. Tonight is about hearing what your candidates plan to do in this next term of council. My plan brings 3 broad policy concepts to the table with specific and measurable goals for the community to track. My Fixing Community Infrastructure plan recognizes that infrastructure is the backbone of our community. With a clear and cohesive policy for its maintenance and for future infrastructure development in Brighton, we will pave the way for great economic opportunities here. My Drive Economic Development policy notes that what we all know, that we must begin a shift of our tax base to relieve the pressure from residential taxpayers to help share the tax burden with a larger commercial industrial tax base. In order to accomplish this, we must both create the conditions to retain and expand existing businesses and create the environment to attract new business ventures to Brighton. Finally, I believe that my Bring Back Accountability and Responsibility Toolkit will allow Council to find its way better and more clearly in the coming term. Our community deserves a Council that will act on behalf of the citizens as a whole, with members who understand and abide by the rules established for local politicians. Brighton deserves a better, cohesive council, not just a different one. A council with a vision who work together to accomplish goals that benefit the community as a whole. I hope that I am fortunate enough to be part of that council. Thank you.
Good evening. Need the glasses? My name is Mary Tadman, and it is a privilege to stand before you seeking re-election as a councillor in the municipality of Brighton. When you elect someone to council, you entrust that individual with considerable responsibility. I do not take that trust for granted. I've lived in this community all my life. I know many of you personally, and I've listened to your concerns, and I share many of them. We want to be better than we are, and I believe that we can be. I believe that a member of council should represent all residents of the municipality with fairness and impartiality. The health and safety of all segments of our community, from our youngest children to our most senior residents, is of utmost importance. I believe that a member of council has a responsibility to ensure that our tax dollars are spent wisely and effectively. Sound fiscal management means being ready to make tough decisions in the best interest of the whole community. I believe that councillors should model respectful and honest interactions as they work together to serve you. Collaborative planning in a spirit of open communication with clearly defined objectives will enable council to move forward and to do the work it was intended to do. I believe the municipality of Brighton is a great place to live. We have the resources to become an even better community. I look forward to what we can accomplish together. Thank you.
Friends and neighbors, it has been my great honor to represent you over the past 4 years as councillor. Each time I cast a vote, by the way, I'm Tom Rivage. Each time I cast a vote around the council table, I'm always sure to consider your best interests. It has been my job to ensure that the decisions I make help safeguard your investment and interest in our community. My primary focus has been economic development in an effort to attract business to Brighton, which in turn will lessen the tax burden on current residential taxpayers and existing businesses. As well, I have favored investment in infrastructure and the creation of new parkland. 2 such initiatives I've been proud to have spearheaded are the creation of the new off-leash dog park and the naming of the newly created park in honor of longtime resident Rose Ellery. Moving forward, my focus continues to be infrastructure investment, economic development, and to bring small to medium-sized industry to our newly purchased and serviced 50-acre industrial park expansion. I will also continue to support our arts community and other various organizations such as the YMCA and Save Our Heritage organizations that add value to all of Brighton's residents. My mandate for the next 4 years includes changing bylaws to allow for multi-level condominiums geared towards seniors, exploring partnerships with local business to create a downtown revitalization program, promote wellness initiatives for children and teens, focus on economic development and the creation of a creative trade hub to further promote business in Brighton, ensure there is equality in the services provided to our rural and urban residents, and with the help of other levels of government, we would partner to build a new library, which is what we need for the 21st century. Finally, I'm very proud to have been part of the Emergency Planning Committee and its chair for the last 4 years, and I will work towards procuring an emergency notification system that is compatible with both home phone and cell phone. I'm grateful for your support in the past and would be honored to be re-elected with council. I'm running out of time, so I just want to let you know I have a vision of how we should be proceeding in making Brighton succeed well into the future. With your support, we can make it happen. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
I don't want you to feel that we're shortchanging any of these people.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emily Rowley. Once again, I am seeking your support to represent you, the citizens of Brighton. During the last 4 years, we have experienced many challenges, and regardless of whether we were able to overcome these, I have put forth my best intentions and have worked tirelessly for our community. My goal is to continue to work toward those challenges that we have yet to conquer. In addition to my time spent with council business, I am and will continue to commit to supporting my community by volunteering with several groups that I've had the privilege of being part of for the last 2 terms. Not only have these committees made various accomplishments to our community, but I look forward to further milestones. We do need to be realistic and recognize that we will probably not experience benefits of large manufacturing in Brighton, but we need to keep in mind that in order to enjoy the quality of life that our community offers, we need to support, encourage both rural and urban business and any future development, whether commercial or creative. From the 10th line to Lake Ontario, from the Cranby border to Quinte West, Brighton is an all-inclusive community. I believe that the future for Brighton looks positive. Although there will be some tough choices ahead of us, it is time for us to move forward with responsible, well-informed decisions, and the key to our success will be honest and cooperative communication. Success is only achieved when leadership and cooperative teamwork is practiced. Focusing only on past decisions and experience can often risk the success of our future. If re-elected, I will endeavor to continue to understand and fairly represent interests of all members of my community and will encourage an environment of more open communication. I will commit to representing this community with transparency, respect, and the dignity that each and every one of you deserve.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Walsh. I'm not going to stand up and make a bunch of promises or pat myself on the back and tell you what I've done in my life. I just thank you for the opportunity to run for council. We all know that council needs some help, and I don't know how to fix it, but I'm sure with the help of the people of Brighton, we'll be able to do a fine job. Thanks very much for your time.
Ready to go? My name is John Martinello. I moved to Brighton 15 years ago after serving 22 years in the Canadian Forces. I'm a civil engineer with a Bachelor of Engineering Science from the University of Western Ontario and a Master of Engineering from Royal Military College. In the Canadian Forces, I served in a variety of positions at locations across Canada and in Bosnia. My time in the Canadian Forces brought me into contact with many ideas and experiences that I believe could be very beneficially applied to making Brighton a better place for all people to live. Over these past 4 weeks, I've knocked on about 2,200 doors, handing out campaign flyers advertising the 5 planks in my platform, namely fiscal responsibility, efficiency, infrastructure, public safety, and transparency. In speaking with Brighton citizens at their doorsteps, there were 3 issues commonly discussed, and they are customer service, wasting Brighton taxpayers' money, and the Brighton sewage treatment plant. I will speak briefly about each of these issues. I believe the new council must ensure that every citizen request for service and information is responded to in a timely, courteous, and equitable manner. I believe the unbudgeted and unsubstantiated borrowing of $500,000 to replace streetlights with LEDs and the unsubstantiated expenditure of tens of thousands of dollars on new municipal pickup trucks was a waste of taxpayers' money. I believe that this money should have been set aside to resolve long-standing and unresolved stormwater drainage issues, or to fix bad roads, or maybe even to build a library. I believe that the fact that Brighton was charged 5 times by the Ontario Ministry of Environment for exceeding effluent limits at the Brighton sewage treatment plant is clear indication that the sewage treatment plant is not working and that we must start the process of building a new sewage treatment plant that will serve Brighton's long-term needs and protect Brighton's most important economic and natural resource, Presqu'île Bay. Brighton is a great place to live, but there is much work to be done to make it an even better place for all people to live, and I commit to making every effort to do that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Roger McMurray. Since my retirement from the Royal Canadian Air Force and the Canadian Forces in 1995, I've been a regular attendee at council meetings, offering suggestions and solutions. Many letters to the editor were drafted to encourage behavioral change by council members. I am fiscally responsible and will treat the resources of the ratepayer in the same manner. My work as a military budget manager, project director, staff officer, and analyst have armed me with the skills I need to do the job. I have the time, the commitment, the temperament, and the patience to do a good job. I will work hard with fellow councillors to make Brighton a thriving municipality. I am running to change the dynamic of council and restore a measure of civility to council meetings and contribute to lowering the temperature of this political pot that seems to be continually boiling over. I will encourage cooperation rather than confrontation. When entering council chambers, I will leave my personal problems, partisan baggage, and biases at the door. The primary role of council members is to represent constituents in the most fiscally responsible way possible. If elected, I pledge to do so. I will work to eliminate needless expenditures, reduce budget numbers, and discourage the use of costly private contractors. Apart from my military career, I have lived in the area most of my life, attended East Northumberland District High School, as it was called in 1959, and I've owned a home in Brighton since 1972. Brighton is overdue for political change. I will be the voice of reason. Thank you very much for listening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joyce Casson, and I'd like to thank you all for coming out to this Chamber event and to the Chamber for hosting it. I decided to run for council this year because I've grown to love local politics. Unbelievable, I know, but I do. And I think it's time for a change. After 17 years of covering Brighton Council for the Community Press and Quinte News, I feel I have a good grasp of what it takes to represent the taxpayers of Brighton on our council. I currently work part-time at the Legion and for Quinte News, so holding down 2 part-time jobs indicates I know a bit about budget constraints, and I would like to see levy increases kept to a minimum. I'm a mom and a grandmother, and have lived in Brighton for the past 12 years, and next door in Crammy Township for about 10 years previously. My son attended South Crammy Public School and ENSS and played minor hockey and soccer right here in Brighton. I have experience dealing with employees, customers, and developers as a co-owner, previously as a co-owner of a multi-million-dollar roofing company, so I know how to listen to people's concerns and get along with people. I have been a member of Brighton Rotary, and I currently chair the Brighton Provincial Wildlife Area Committee, and I've been a volunteer for many organizations and groups such as Applefest, Northumberland County Emergency Preparedness, the Brighton and District Chamber of Commerce, which is Brighton and Crammy District Chamber of Commerce now, and Northumberland County Tourism, just to name a few. Understanding the importance of customer and staff relations and knowing how to budget and work together as a team to reach goals are some of the skills I would bring to the council chambers. Issues with the current council have been front and center in the news, and not in a good way, and I would like to see that change. Whether elected or not, I would challenge all of the successful candidates to leave the past in the past and move forward with the business in hand in a respectful and professional manner. Compromise is part of being on a team, and council is a team. We may not like everything, but once a decision of council is made, it's up to all the elected officials to support and uphold that decision. Should I be fortunate enough to be elected on October 27th, I vow to treat all fellow council members with respect and to listen to the views that they, staff, and the citizens we represent bring to the table. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stephen Baker. I want to thank you, Mr. Moderator, for this evening at the Chamber of Commerce for inviting all the candidates. Some of you know me from my computer shop, others simply because I've lived in the community for 25 years. I'm a former member of the Canadian Armed Forces. I spent years in the financial industry before starting 2 successive companies of my own. I'm currently a managerial consultant for a large corporation. I feel my background in finance, business administration, and technology will allow me to intelligently debate and understand the issues at hand. To prepare, I have completed a course through the Association of Municipalities of Ontario on what to expect as a municipal councillor. Education is the cornerstone of any progressive society. One should never stop seeking knowledge or understanding. As a municipality, we will face many challenges in the coming term: infrastructure renewal, downtown revitalization, the expansion of the library, to name a few. The biggest challenge will be how to fund these projects and which takes priority. Council should seek the input of the community, including our residents to the north and the east. Our provincial government to help fund it. We all know that the past 4 years have not been easy, that our current council has faltered at times. In going door to door over the past week, I and my volunteers have heard a resounding call for change. It's time to move forward with a new and enlightened council. A council with vision and progressive ideas, not one mired in strife. You will hear many promises and pledges this evening, ladies and gentlemen, but I will only make you one. I pledge, if elected, to act in a professional and respectful manner in dealing with my fellow council members and you, the public. It is time for us as a community to move away from the divisive politics of the past and to move forward as one united. Thank you.
If you would. Now we can have people line up, if you would like, to ask questions. I remind you that you have 45 seconds to ask the question, and that each of the panel members will have a minute to answer the question, and we'll ask it to start at Mr. Baker on the other end if you don't have a question directed at a specific councillor. Please tell us your name when you start.
Mic is not on. I've been cut off. Before I started. My name is Charlie LeBert. I'm a resident of Brighton. My question is concerning the LED street lighting project. Trent Hills and New York City are installing LED street lighting that will pay back their cost in 5 years. At the previous all candidates meeting, I heard that Brighton's LED street lighting will pay back our cost in 12 years. Usually projects with paybacks of 5 years should be done, and paybacks over 10 years are usually deferred. It is too late to defer this project, so my question is, why is Trent Hills getting a better payback than Brighton?
As you mentioned, sir, the LED project has been approved and put forward. There's no going back. So we need to re-look at what we can do to recover those costs in a more economical manner in the shorter range. Okay?
I can tell you, is this on? I can tell you, Charlie, that we have the option anytime at budget time to pay that loan off anytime we want. And we chose to go over a 10-year period. That was the recommendation from staff. And one of the things that has to be very clear here is that this is a project. 41% of our cost to power hydro gas come through our streetlights. We are throwing money away, flushing it down the toilet by not having LED lights. We can revisit this at the next budget. We can pay this back as fast as we want, but in 10 years after we pay the loan off and the interest, we will have $1.2 million in our pocket for other infrastructure needs. I'm very open to paying that loan off in 5 years. The mayor had suggested that he opposed it because of Trent Hills, but Trent Hills only came to this epiphany last week, so we can change it at any time we want.
Thank you. I think the important thing to bear in mind is that we borrowed $500,000 to convert the streetlights to LED. That money will all be repaid, that $500,000. And in addition to that, there will be an $800,000 net savings to the taxpayer going forward, and that's a significant amount of money. The proposal came in through the LAS system of AMO. Our staff had the wisdom to go out for quotes and wound up getting an installation price that was some $100,000 cheaper than what was advertised. So the due diligence was done, and I would suggest that this is an excellent investment for the municipality of Brighton.
I guess I would suggest this is not an excellent investment for the municipality of Brighton. And I oppose this because, number one, it was not included in the budget. Number two, when I asked for information that would back up the calculation of the cost savings, I was told it was proprietary information. I would not spend 5 of my dollars, my own dollars, if I did not know, if the contractor or the supplier providing the service could not tell me everything he knew about the service I was requesting. So I could not support this, the borrowing of $500,000 for the LED street lightings, and I opposed it in the vote. And the other thing is, I'd like to say there has been numbers thrown all over the place about the amount of savings that will be realized per year, and they vary from 120 to 180, and I'm not quite sure what the baseline for these calculations is, but I think this was a bad decision. I think the money we spent or borrowed on these LEDs could have been better spent, maybe building a new library, maybe building better roads, maybe improving snow plowing, maybe building a new sewage treatment plant. But this was not identified by staff as a critical issue, and not once in my 4 years on council did I ever hear a ratepayer complain.
I'm going to stop you there. Pardon me. I'm going to stop you there. I don't think. I I don't think we need to proceed any further with that one. This is something that's already been done. It's through. There's not an awful lot we can change about it. Maybe it was wrong, maybe it was right. I think we need to move on. Your question is done then? Thank you. Sir, if you'll identify yourself and then ask the question.
My name is Robert Shorty. Can you hear me okay? This question is for John Martinello. As you know, the Municipal Act is the law governing council meetings, and it requires that notice of meeting be given, that an agenda be prepared, and that minutes be taken. You signed an affidavit on September 3rd, 2013, along with Councillor Cadman and Mayor Wallace, stating that a decision had been made to terminate the CEO, Gail Frost. No notice of this meeting and no agenda and no minutes can be found anywhere. Please explain how this conduct conforms to your strong endorsement for transparency and to the Municipal Act.
Okay, I understand the question, and at the time, it was about August of 2011, we were about 9 months into the term of council. In doing these different deliberations, setting up the meeting, the termination meeting, and setting up the various contracts and things that will be related with Mrs. Frost, the end of Mrs. Frost's employment, we consulted lawyers, in particular Mayor Walls consulted lawyers, and not once were we told that we were doing anything wrong. That's number one. And number two, when we went forward with this, there was 4 members of the council that fully endorsed our move here. So again, I understand that we may have done wrong in not giving public notice of the meeting, but when we sought the advice of the lawyers that we pay a lot of money to, they never raised any issue with what we were doing.
Were they familiar with the Municipal Act?
I'm presuming that their lawyers would be familiar with the municipal. You want to answer that?
The lawyers that we consulted, in fact, are the municipal council, and they have been consulted a number of times on issues related to the Municipal Act.
Thank you.
No problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to reiterate. This is a ask for information and let's go forward. So far, 2 questions have dealt with the past. It's time to go forward. Let's put it behind us. I'm guessing your question is going forward.
Gordon Toby for the questions for any of the candidates here. We are losing some of our historic architecture in this historic community, which I think is a tremendous asset to our community, and I want to know what any of you candidates think about preserving our historic architecture.
And I'm going to ask Steve Baker to start it and run from that end, please.
Yeah, if you look at my concerns here, you'll see that I oppose the building of another gas station on the corner downtown along the Matt's Mill. I've done some research into brownfield redevelopment. I'd like to see the 2 historic buildings at the end of that street that are slated to be torn down if this development goes forward. I'd like to see them encompassed in a new development on that corner, and I invite you to look at the research. Thank you.
I'm fully in support of preserving our heritage buildings. It was very upsetting to see the school and the old church go. I firmly believe that we should look after our heritage because once it's gone, we cannot get it back. And now we found that there's been buildings that we could actually be using now, but it's too late now. So yes, I definitely believe it.
That's a great question, Mr. Toby. The municipality, as I understand it, has set a precedent in the past few years. We've seen the historic house on Ontario Street gone, albeit now it's a beautiful little park for Roselle, who much deserves it. The bank building is gone. Scanlon's drugstore is gone. The school is gone. The church is gone. So there has been a precedent set for that. And I'm for I'm for development, but I would like to see the facade preserved as part of the development. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
In order, please, unless you don't want to speak. You're next.
So my record on heritage preservation is clear. I supported the demolition of the Brighton Public School. I thought it was the right thing to do, that Brighton had to be brought forward into the modern era. I think the demolition of the school was a good thing, and that we've delivered a good facility to a lot of people in Brighton. About the Max Milk, my understanding is that the owners of both the Heritage Jewelry and the Payday store have asked that have given permission to sell the property, and I don't believe that the municipality or anybody else is standing in a person's way if they want to sell the building. My only issue with the Max Milk is a traffic safety issue, and if those issues can be resolved, or if it can be demonstrated that they don't exist, I support the Max Milk. And I also believe that heritage is much more than buildings. It involves a whole bunch of things that we don't talk about at this type of forum.
Guess what? My name's Thomas Walsh, and I don't have an opinion on this because my daughter actually married the guy who owns the jewelry store. And I don't want to start off with a conflict of interest.
Folks, I've been around long enough to remember, as many of you, and maybe there are newcomers who don't, that Yonge Street, Prince Edward Street used to wind around the corner past the old Independent building. Dr. Laughlin had his doctor's office, and Len Taft had a sports shop, and we're losing our buildings. And I can stand here and tell you that I did everything I could to find some reasonable conclusion to the old public school debate, and it just didn't happen. But what I will say is you know, I remember my dad telling me, you know, when he was on council, he stood up and fought like hell to keep the bank building, and nobody was interested. And it's nice to see that there are folks who are interested. I oppose the Max Milk on the corner. I oppose tearing down the old theater, and I oppose tearing down the old Morrow building. So that's where I stand. I mean, we're not going to have much left. It's almost, for those who have children, you'll understand what I'm saying. It's turning into Radiator Springs from the kids movie, Disney movie Cars, where people are driving by us and ignoring us because we've got nothing left. So I like the idea of saving as many buildings as we can.
Thank you for the question, Gordon. Is that still on? When I first got on council, we were asked which committees we'd be most interested in, and Heritage was one of them, and I do sit on the Heritage Committee. And to echo what Councillor Martinello said, there is sometimes, as most of you know, that I supported having this school torn down because I could see that it was a sick building, and therefore I finally decided that it wasn't the best for the community, for our students. So thinking the same on this line, I will look at everything and then make my decision. So at this point, I can't say one way or the other. I do say, though, that we need to be open for business. Maybe that's not the right one, though. Thank you.
Do you agree that the preservation of our historic architecture is good for the economic well-being of our community?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Dobie, for your question. One of my policy platforms is to drive economic development, as you probably know. And one of the points on that is to develop a plan for Main Street that would allow for commercial expansion, but also preserve the heritage-style buildings along the Main Street. So a zoning or a special zoning plan that would permit commercial establishments in the lower levels of those homes, what we think of as homes now, with residential upstairs. From a personal experience, I'm chair of Trinity St. Andrews United Church, and we are proud of the original church building, which was built in 1859, to the point where we... 1849, actually. 1848 was when the deed was passed over. Well, you know more about this than I. The bricks came from your place, right? But we pour, and I mean this, we pour a lot of money into the preservation of that building because we love that building. And buildings like that building and other buildings on our main street and in our downtown must be preserved.
Scott Using again. I am very much in favor of the project, and I'll explain to you why. Both of those buildings that we're talking about north of the empty lot, which for the record has been empty for 9 years now, those two buildings are in great need. They're in very bad disrepair. Some of the reclamation that was done on the empty lot has damaged the Heritage Jewelers building even further than it already was. There are many places in town that are important as far as recognizing and remembering our heritage. These buildings are too far gone already. They can't afford to fix them. And we have an empty lot that sat empty for 9 years. If we could put condos or something up on there, that would be great. But the first offer that's come along in 9 years, they want to work with the town, and again, I worry that if this goes away, that we'll be closed for business.
I've always been told, oh, by the way, Andreas Becker. I've always been told first rule of order is show up. However, I wasn't prepared to be 12th in the line of this, so I agree with most of what the candidates have said. One of the things that we've neglected to think about, I think, is that we have buildings like Memory Junction and the museum that are attached to that. We're now seeing work being done on the building in Hilton with the museum going in there. Scott made the point that the old theater building is at this point an unhealthy building. The question becomes priority of where do those dollars go. I agree that our heritage is extremely important here, but how do we put the dollars to make the best use of them in our community? Maybe one building may have to go in order to have a better project be there, but that would be something we'd have to determine.
Hi, thank you for your question, Laura Bink. I am definitely in favor of restoring or keeping our heritage buildings whenever we can. I've lived here for many years. I saw a lot of buildings go down as well, as mentioned, the old bank and the church. And I really think that sometimes council hands are tied, but I think that we always have to do our best to preserve any of the buildings that we can, especially we have very few left in town. And I would definitely would like to see council work towards saving or putting something in place that we could have more of a say in saving these buildings. So for the record, I'm not in favor of the Max Milk. I do believe, I know that lot has been empty for many years, but I don't think we have to just jump at the first opportunity that comes along. We really have to look at what else is there. So thank you.
As part of our community development plan, we've struck a downtown revitalization committee, which is charged with looking at the broad picture of the whole downtown area to see how it should be preserved, promoted, and as part of our economic development efforts. And clearly the heritage interests have to be at the table when we're doing that, and whether we have a heritage district or what element of that comes into play will be part of the heritage committee work. And getting involved in the decision about the Max Milk or whatever at this point in time, there's a lot of planning decisions have to go forward. We have time to consider that as part of the whole downtown revitalization, but heritage is an absolutely integral part of any kind of economic development as we go forward. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Please, sir.
Would you be in favor of establishing heritage districts in our community?
I would.
Thank you, Mr. Coby.
My name is Frank Hansen. I have a question to, sort of two-part, one to the past council, one to the next council. In the strategic planning and all the discussion, we live in a fairly affluent community. I'm wondering, has the needs of the people living below the poverty line in our community been even mentioned at all in the past council, or will they be a priority of the next council?
I guess we'll have to make that into two parts. Can we have a few of the past council answer that? Tom, perhaps you'd start it?
Tom Ripich. It's a great question, Frank, and there are certainly some lines that are crossed and blurred when it comes to responsibilities, but I can tell you that the responsibility to help those who are less fortunate starts at home. We, this council, have done many things, whether it is waiving costs or fees for various organizations to provide services with our facilities for children who are underprivileged. We talk about wanting to ensure that we reach out and touch folks who don't necessarily have the opportunity. I can think of Sunny Days Camp. We're talking about a skateboard park. As far as moving forward, are we talking about moving forward, or are we just talking about? As far as moving,
go ahead.
As far as moving forward goes, I've always been a proponent that we need to take care of the most vulnerable people in society, whether that's seniors. We need more places for seniors to go when they retire, whether it's chronic care facilities or whether it's just a facility where they can go that is affordable. We need to work with our partners at Northumberland County who are responsible for affordable housing, and we need to get them here in our community as our population ages. Not everybody can afford to go to a Seasons in Trent. Thank you.
Emily?
I could just ask one thing too. Before you address the needs to is there an awareness of the demographic who actually in our community are living below the poverty line? Are they single parents, seniors? And also one of the questions for long-term development would be the example, do we need affordable housing? Not just funding local groups or aiding, but actually is there something more strategic?
The answer is yes, we do need affordable housing. Not everybody has the ability to work the jobs and have jobs that pay well. But also, we need to work with the county, Northumberland County. We do have a member who sits on a county council who is to advocate for us. And we do talk around the council table about doing things that can be, in the best interest. Food bank, we support the food bank. We support all kinds of things, and I've taken enough time, but yes, thanks, Frank.
What I'm going to do then is, we seem to have just been given a bit of the history. If each of the councillors, starting with Craig, here would like to address the issue of what the future looks like, I'll start with Craig.
It's a subject that the municipal level of government hasn't gotten deeply involved in the past. The responsibility for social housing, assisted housing, and so on, as Tom said, clearly rests with Northumberland County. But we need to work with them in doing that. However, there are tools available to us through the planning process where when we're approving plans of subdivision or other developments, there can be provisions for a certain amount of affordable housing. And that's being done in many communities. It'll take a lot of negotiation and work with the local home builders and others in the industry to make that happen. But I think it's something going forward that with our changing demographics and with the pressures on the economy, we're going to be faced with dealing with going forward.
One of the things that I noticed, Andreas Becker. One of the things that I noticed when I was teaching in Quebec is that the face of poverty is not immediately evident. It is hidden. And we think we know the right answers for how to help that, but we actually need to research that and understand it more clearly. Sometimes it's right in front of our own eyes. One of the things that I noticed in this community that could benefit from that is some sort of a strategic plan that would consider a measure of some sort of public transit around the community to get people back and forth, both seniors, single mothers, and those without vehicles, or the dollars for vehicles. That could be accomplished by perhaps substituting other vehicles, of which we may have too many, going around the community all day long with something like a small bus. I won't say what, though. Thank you.
Hi, Scott Uzinga. I guess a couple things. Not only do we need to be working on expanding our social programs, for the impoverished and who are medically unable to get around, that kind of thing. But also, we need to be bringing business to town, not only business at an entry level for our youth. Things like, one thing that we all talk about a fair bit is like a Tim Hortons or a McDonald's that hires a lot of people. But further to that, we need to bring in industry that pays a better wage so that we can have our youth stay in town and not have to leave and go somewhere else in order to make a decent living. So that would be another thing that I would look at and try and get new businesses that are on the higher end. So thank you.
Thanks, Frank. I'm Brian Ostrander. I've had the privilege of sitting on the Northumberland United Way board for the last 3 years, and I can tell you the statistics are there. We at the United Way know that poverty is invisible in Northumberland County largely because the people who are impoverished own their own homes and go to work. They work at sometimes 2 and 3 jobs just to be able to afford what they can afford and still have to visit the food banks, which again are supported by the United Way and the county. The United Way has a really, really close partnership with the county, and the one thing we talk about a lot is expanding that partnership to the local municipalities. I think that's vital to get to where this poverty is and to give these people the hand up they really need.
Hi, and thanks for that question. I'm Mary Tadman. I have opposed the last 3 budgets because I felt that the increases were too much for the ordinary citizen to keep in an area now where I personally am paying double the taxes from when I first moved into my home. And as I've gone door to door, people are saying, you know, what am I getting for my taxes? I don't mind paying. And some people just said, I just can't afford to pay my taxes anymore. So I think we have to be more prudent as we move forward and try to keep the taxes at a level that is more comfortable for all citizens.
Emily? Yeah, Tom already had his go, Emily, it's okay.
Hi, Frank. Thank you for the question, Emily Rowley. I've, as you know, been a volunteer at the food bank now for probably 15 years, and I'm well aware that there is a need in this community, whether it be in income-geared housing, whether it comes through the county, or you know, whether there's something that developers could do for that. But yes, it often does go unnoticed, but it keeps me grounded when I work there, when you realize that it's not just young families and it's not just seniors. It kind of covers all of the spectrum here in the community, and we do need to keep our eye on top of that.
Thomas Walsh. I probably live at the poverty level, but I think if we stopped hiring consultants and stopped paying for lawyers and got a town council that would cut along, we probably have enough money to help out with a lot of these things.
I guess I would echo what Councillor Tadman said, is that I've knocked on 2,200 doors over these past 4 weeks, and a lot of people have brought up the question of the high taxes. And I understand, and I think it's clear when you listen to the news and that these are hard times for a lot of people. And I admit that I haven't done much for the impoverished on this council, but what I have done, as Councillor Tadman, is I've voted against the budgets that propose what I feel are unreasonable tax increases.
Roger McMurray. Well, I think that everybody in the municipality has a right to have safe, affordable housing. That being said, Northumberland County is the one that's carrying the can, but I would like to see our council make some sort of overture and 2, Northumberland County to get the ball rolling. Thank you very much.
Joyce Casson, thanks Frank for the question. On the campaign trail, I've actually spoken with several people, and what they think is a great idea would be to have a community garden, something similar to Trenton. People could, learn how to garden. Basically, it's people who live in apartments right now. They say they have no place, they don't have money for proper food. So if we could get a community garden together, that would be wonderful.
Steve Baker, you have to ask yourself why in an affluent country like Canada that we have people in need. It's been successive policies set by the federal and provincial governments that have decimated the middle class, not to mention the working class. Those are the policies that I encourage you all to speak to your MPs and MPPs. We will do what we can at the municipal level to help those in needs, but it's those policies that have put the people where they are today.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your question. Next question.
I'm Leslie Simla. I'm with Friends of Brighton Public Library, and many of you know exactly what I'm going to say already. All of the candidates have received 4 questions from Friends, and we have received answers by and large from most of you. There was a motion passed last May that we will build a new library, dedicated library here in Brighton. I would like to know who among you are visionary enough to make sure that it is not a motion, but it is a building in the ground. This will take hard work, energy, looking for other money, and Friends stands by. I know that there's planning in place already, and we will encourage that in any way. But a good, strong new library will address many of the concerns I've already heard: inequities in income, innovation, branding. It will set a tone for this community that will attract a lot of things and do a lot of good. So who among you are going to stand up and say, I will do anything to see that library built?
Could I ask all of you, who among you will stand? That's the question. So please, that's all I want you to do is stand. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much, and Friends will be watching to see whether you sit down.
Next question.
My name is Cindy Lewis. I own an office supply store in Brighton, as most of you all know. I understand the municipality was given $40,000 from our provincial government for downtown revitalization. These funds have been used to hire a person to run a shop local marketing campaign for Brighton. I also understand that a budget decision was made by the municipality that all office supplies will now be purchased by a Northumberland buying group who will not be purchasing from local. My question is, how can you ask taxpayers to support local when we don't?
Thank you, Craig Kerr. There's been tremendous pressure over this last term of council, in fact over the last year or so, that we have to partner with the county, with other municipalities to get some sharing of services and reduce costs accordingly. And that is undoubtedly where this particular decision came into play. So it's one case where that particular supply is not going local. However, I will remind people that we are in the downtown revitalization. We're in the branding project, which is creating new small business, and that is centered on the building up what the merchants have in this community and expanding on it. So I think it will even out in the end. Thank you.
Hi, Laura Vink. I understand what Craig is saying about buying and probably bulk buying, that sort of thing, to save money. And I think when it comes to council decisions, I think there's a lot of juggling as far as who you're going to please. And so I don't have the right answer for you. I just wanted to just kind of make that comment. And I do believe buying local is really important. And I think things like that maybe have to be looked at maybe twice before a decision is made, just for that reason, because I get what we're trying to do, because we're trying to keep taxes low, right? But we want to buy local. So there's those two things going on. And those are sort of things that we really have to take a double take at to make sure that we are doing the right thing for the community.
Still Andreas Becker. Two things. That was the right answer. I have a confession to make. I shop locally. Cindy knows that, and a lot of the other merchants do, and I feel the difference of when locally does not get shopped in my store on Main Street. It is probably one of the most important elements of our downtown revitalization, our growth in the community, because if your dollars stay local, they circulate 9 times and it multiplies by a factor of 9, and that will show itself like a domino effect in everything that we have or don't have in our community. So yes, shop locally. When we think in terms of what can town council do with the dollars that we're not spending there, if Cindy's store closes, then we all lose. I lose because I go there all the time. So that small amount of dollars makes all the difference in the world, and it doesn't need to be tendered if it's the only one local.
Scott Using again. Cindy, I'm just wondering, were you given the opportunity to match? Because from what I understand, you're fairly competitive.
Yeah, a few years ago, I was given a list and I did match those prices, but nothing ever came of that. That was several years ago, probably before this now.
And that's I think the general theme is we should be spending our tax dollars whenever possible in the community with the businesses that are already here. I would say the same thing goes along with the LED project that seems to be a lot of discussion, where we have a local business right in Brighton that does that kind of work, and yet they're not doing it. We should keep our tax dollars here supporting our businesses and helping our community grow.
Thanks, Cindy. I'm still Brian Ostrander. I think it's unconscionable. I think it's unconscionable to ask our citizens, our free citizens, to shop locally and then not provide the same service as a government. One of the things I've committed to is looking at a number of our bylaws, restrictive and, in this case, purchasing, so that we could reopen those issues and perhaps look at opportunities to allow more local organizations another hand up in terms of purchasing for their local government.
Mary Tadman, and as I told you before, I've lived here all my life. I hardly ever go out of town. I hate to shop anywhere else but Brighton. A perfect example tonight is everything I have on I bought in Brighton, and I don't look too bad.
Before I answer the question, I just want to let folks know I'm not sitting up here largely uninterested. I've got the flu, and I'm doing everything I can to not be dizzy and fall out of my chair. But I just want you all to know, last year my wife and I challenged each other to buy everything for Christmas in Brighton, and we did. And I can tell you that when we sit around the budget table and we talk about purchasing things, whether it's colored diesel, whether it's fuel, I always ask the question, is it local? Where things get off the rails is there are members who sit on council who will say, we have to save every dollar. We have to save every dollar in the best interest of the taxpayer. But let me tell you something. If we've got bids that are really close, we should err on the side of the local business. If we've got a bid that is 50 or 100,000 miles apart, we really, really have to ensure that we're doing what's best for the local taxpayer. But I'll tell you, Cindy, if you're close, we should be buying our paper from you. And that's the end of story.
Can you see the big picture?
I see the big picture. As I said, I'm a former business owner. My wife and I own the Apple Crate Tea Room, and we know what it's all about. So I get it.
Emily Rowley, thank you for the question, Cindy. As you know, a few years ago, I was trying to stump for you as well to make sure that what was able to be done in Brighton, that we could shop a local through the municipality. And definitely, I would think maybe not strong enough voice, but would certainly be on board as far as having to reconsider those bylaws that we can buy more. I'm also a proponent of shopping local and have said the same to shopkeepers in Brighton. I didn't spend a Christmas dollar in Walmart. It all came to Brighton. And I would encourage the rest of us to do the same.
Hi, Cindy. Thanks for the question. I too shop local. If my bicycle can't get there, I don't go anywhere else.
Yes, we appreciate the comedy relief. You're right.
Thank you, Mr. Martinello. Go ahead.
I guess the first thing I would say is that I was not aware this was a council decision at all. In fact, I don't know anybody that's on this current council that could say we voted to do this. But I agree with Mr. Ostrander that it is unconscionable that we would spend $40,000 on a branding strategy, that we would spend $30,000 of Ontario taxpayers' dollars to hire a downtown economic development revitalization coordinator and then cut off buying supplies from you. It is unconscionable. And I have a question for you. Were you given an opportunity to bid on this work?
No, I heard it through the grapevine. I heard that the money was being taken out elsewhere.
Well then, I cannot believe that any bylaw would say that we can award a job to anybody without having some kind of open and fair bidding process. And trust me, I am one of those people that does speak to saving every Brighton taxpayer's dollars. But I say it's unconscionable what's happened here, and it must be stopped.
So, why did Craig? Like, why did Mr. Kerr know about the decision? My question is, why did Mr. Kerr know about the decision and you didn't?
Okay.
How did you not know if Craig did?
Okay, because I found out about this, and I put it out on an email saying basically that it's unconscionable and that we must change this. And that email did not go to Councillor Kerr, but went to a number of candidates that are sitting here before you, and that may be how he learned. But I cannot speak.
So it did not go before council?
This decision to cut off buying paper and supplies from you did not come before council.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Kerr needs an opportunity to respond to that.
I'd just like to clarify. I took you at your word when you said that the decision had been made, and I connected it with the decisions that were going forward of partnering and sharing with other municipalities and so on. I did not know specifically about your situation until you brought it up here tonight. So I apologize if I misunderstood what you were saying.
Roger, go ahead.
I don't know how many people here have looked at the agenda package and seen the amount of local businesses that appear on the accounts payable. It's a tremendous amount, and I'm quite surprised that Cindy's business is being sacrificed on the altar of political expediency, if you will. I'm really surprised. And I agree with Councillor Martinello and Councillor Ostrander, or Councillor-to-be Ostrander. And if I were a business owner in Brighton, I'd be looking over my shoulder. I really would. I'd be looking over my shoulder to see whether the guy was coming for me, to be very honest. So I don't agree with this decision. I think Cindy should continue supplying stationery and stuff to the municipality. Thank you.
It sounds as though you haven't had the opportunity to quote for office supplies for quite some time. Pardon?
That's true.
Okay. I'm not sure whether there's an actual tender process, but if there isn't, there definitely should be, because we should be putting our taxpayer dollars locally so that everybody wins. I mean, by buying elsewhere, we're not helping our own people, we're not helping ourselves. We may save a dime here, but then we lose a business. So definitely in support of buying local.
Steve Baker. We've heard from every one of the incumbents here, and they've all said they support buy local. Every one of them voted and passed this budget. So do they really understand what they're passing if they're not aware of what's going on with their local businesses? Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Roger Green. I want to follow on something. I'll blame Andreas Becker because I'm following on something he said. You brought up transport. One of my gripes here is that we lost whatever bus service we have. Long ago, we lost train service. I personally have spent a lot of my own time unpaid corresponding with Via Rail, with Go Transit, with MPs and with MPPs about why doesn't a retirement community, heavily retirement community like Brighton, have as a priority having public transit. You got a lot of old people, you got people who don't want to drive, or maybe they shouldn't be driving anymore. Oh, the day will come fairly soon to me, but my point is that I've worked at this on my own time for something like 8, 10, 12 years, contacting people, trying to work this up. And I cannot see any evidence that Brighton Council, over that period of time, has done anything to try to get, you know, our bus and train service back.
And your question would be?
Well, how do people think about whether they intend to do that? Or do the councillors think that's important as a priority to try to campaign for, I don't care whether it's Via Rail or Go Transit. Go Transit is extending out, of course.
Okay, I'll ask Steve to start at this time.
Most public transit is done on a for-profit, so to get a small business in here, whether it's bus or whether it's Via Rain with a trail, all they're going to look at is ridership and are the dollars there. So if we are going to put anything in the community, we're going to have to fund it ourselves.
I don't have any perception that there wouldn't be good ridership between here and
What I'm
Toronto.
saying, sir, is that's all they're gonna look at is the dollars, right? If we can't prove the dollars are there, they won't come. So we have to make that case for ourselves, correct?
I know in Port Hope, they had a group together when their transit, the actual Via Rail was going to stop being there. They fought that to get it back. So that was basically led by the citizens.
Yeah.
So if the citizens could lead a group, council should back them up for sure.
Yeah, council should be on board. Trenton has done a better job. They
Yes.
managed to get more trains to stop out there at the, at that Trenton station.
Yes, because Trenton Station was going to close as well, yes.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a train station, so it would have to be like the bus, but.
I think there's ways around that,
But anyway, I do think that it should be citizen-led and that council should back them up.
you
Yes.
can get on from a platform and buy your ticket on board. There are places that would do that. But anyway.
Roger McMurray. Where did Roger Green go? How are you doing, Roger? In any case, I'm probably one of the few people here that's ever taken a train from Brighton. I have actually. I took a train in 1965 off to basic training in Saint-Jean, Quebec when I joined the RCAF. And it was a great trip. It really was. However, I think that a bigger effort should be made to lobby Via Rail for some sort of a commuter line that will go to the Big Smoke and other places. And I think it's important that we have a link with the big city. And conversely, the big city would probably turn us into the Hamptons or someplace like that. In any case, thank you very kindly.
I agree with what Mr. Green says. I think that the council should be advocating for more public transit and more connection with either GO Transit or Via Rail. And I think that as we spend all this effort in economic development and hiring economic development officers, it is something that we could do to make this place more livable for the people who live here already and make it more attractive for economic development. So I think it's something that council should get behind, and it doesn't necessarily have to be citizen-led.
Thomas Walsh? No, I'm not going to do it this time. I think we should get behind public transit. I don't understand why the bus goes to the casino, but the bus doesn't go anywhere else.
I think the casino pays for that bus. Folks, public transit is important. We do spend our gas tax money that we get from the federal government for Quinte accessibility, and that gives us the ability to provide transit for people who have mobility issues, and that's a good start for us. I'm going to tell you, if I might, I'll agree with Steve Baker on this. Via Rail are all about dollars and cents, and every time they stop the train, it costs X amount of dollars per minute. But where we can be realistic is where we go after Greyhound, and this council did send a letter to Greyhound to provide bus service back into town, and I believe that was at the request of Roger McMurray. Am I wrong, Roger? Yeah. So we did ask them to return. I can tell you, as a student, when I was a student going back and forth to university in Ottawa or going to my girlfriend's house in Waterloo, it was always difficult to get to where you wanted to get to out of Brighton. But perhaps we should look at the realistic things. There's nothing wrong with council sending something off to our member of parliament, but I think we should hit the fish that we can catch right away, which would be Greyhound.
Well, I forgot to mention that they've chopped off all the stops, including Brighton.
Thank you, Roger. I'm Mary Tadman. I sit on the Quinte Access, and for some time the bus wasn't used quite regular, but as the word of mouth got out, the ridership is going up, and that is one area that helps seniors and those with different disabilities. But I do agree that both council and the citizens need to get together and see if we can provide more for all of our residents, those especially who need that kind of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. I'm Brian Ostrander. I'm a former member of the local agency committee for community care, and one of the things that group talks about is transportation, 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 for obvious reasons. I stood just about right there 4 years ago and said that we should, from a county level, be advocating for GO Transit and or some form of bus service from this community as an integrated public transit system for the county. I'd stand by that on December 1st if I'm elected, and I'll advocate that whoever our county councilor is, take that message to county.
I think public transportation is very important in the area. I'll tell you, my son, who's 24, he just had a new baby, and they were forced to move to Belleville because of the lack of the ability to move around. Sorry? So I think that, you know, we talk about public transportation, there's lots of options there as far as different sizes buses and even looking at a volunteer group for people to drive around. So I think it's a good idea, and I agree with Mr. Ostrander about a more comprehensive with Northumberland and getting them on board as well to provide funding for that kind of thing. Thanks.
Andreas Becker. Public transport, public transit. I think that I don't necessarily agree that just because the dollars and cents of it look very big and we have to acquiesce or to bow down to the fact that it could be expensive. Via Rail has done some pretty incredible things, and we have 350,000 people come through here in the summertime for Presqu'île. Why not make that available by rail? Why stop just because it looks like a tall mountain to climb? We could do it if we wanted to, but we have to try. And that's what I think is important for our next council and for all the members. We need to try and go for the high mountains.
I think public transit is a great idea. I also would love to see GO Train or something like that come this way. My daughter's been in university in the Hamilton area for 4 years, and I drove back and forth with the GO Train all the time to pick her up, and I would love to see it extended. And whether it's viable or not, I don't know, but I think it's definitely something we need to look at.
Through the economic development efforts throughout the Quinte economic region, biking has become a very large part of the tourism draw and so on. And that may well be the hook that we need to get to Via with, because they have extended the bike train, to my knowledge, down to Coburg. And with the growth in biking in this area, it's very possible that we could then make it as a suggestion to move here. The other point I'd like to make is that the Brighton bus that has been running for a few years is really potentially an embryo public transit system. Many, many people are using that, especially from people in the south end of the town, to come uptown to do some shopping and get back down, or to get out into the park or whatever. And if we continue to support that and help it to grow, that could become a public transit of some form, at least the embryo of it. So I think we've got some spade work already started, and I'd certainly support expanding it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Next question.
My name is Henry Gatgate, and my question pertains to finances of the city. And
Lean in just a little closer.
okay, my name is Henry Gatgate. My question pertains to the financial management of the city. I see myself as a taxpayer, as most people do, and we elect you to be our tax spenders, and we really appreciate you all doing that. However, in the process of city finances, you make budgets. The last budget, when I went through the budget entirely, I looked at it and I found that the $2.5 million.
Keep going, you're doing fine.
The $2.5 million budget that was supposed to be in infrastructure had only $84,000 in it. And also found that this year, although we had a budget, afterwards we spent all that money that's going to be spent for the lights. What are you going to do in the future to see that budgets are maintained and that the funds that you need for infrastructure are going to be put back in?
Which end did I leave off at? Craig?
I didn't quite understand your reference to the last budget being $2 million and only $84,000 in infrastructure.
Well, the $5 million that we had when the hydro was sold to the Ontario Hydro, that money went into the infrastructure fund. That infrastructure fund at budget time had $84,000 left in it, although it showed $2.5 million. I asked one of the councillors, where did the money go? He said, oh, we used that for internal borrowing. So the money really isn't there, it's been spent somewhere. Now, after that, when it came to the budget that we had, we put on how much of the LED lights cost. It's okay that you buy them, but the budget had been passed. If you put it on to next year and thought about it, deliberated about it, I'd say fine. However, we just add like 15 or 20% to our budget because council decides. I have a problem with that. This is not housekeeping matters. This is future spending, which was not in the budget.
So the question would be, how are we going to fund infrastructure?
Yeah,
in
well,
the
how are
future?
we going to put the money back in the infrastructure fund so that we have the money to develop the infrastructure, to get economic development and all those other things? That's my question.
And all of those loans from the, all of the loans that you're speaking of, we've borrowed internally, are being repaid with an interest rate, and that's how the fund gets replenished. So we're borrowing internally in order to accomplish those, and that maintains the reserves. As far as the lead lighting, again, that was a separate borrowing situation that cost nothing on the tax rate. It didn't impair our infrastructure spending in any respect whatsoever, because that loan is being repaid from the savings, the energy savings that are being generated. So getting the lead lights involved in those discussions was is a little off the topic. The other point is when we did the budget last year, we have an asset management plan that specifies how we should look after our infrastructure. And we struck a low budget, and we had two people stand up in the public meeting and say, you're nuts because you have identified in your asset management plan that you need to be spending this much money. You need to put more money in the budget for infrastructure. So I believe there's support there in order to maintain our infrastructure going forward. Thank you.
You're next.
I understand your question, and I thank you for the question. Unfortunately, as a newbie, I don't think I can answer it in a way that, because I don't have all the knowledge from what happened. I think going forward, we just have to be very careful about how we look at our budgets and that we explain what decisions are being made. I think that sometimes the problem is that there's a lack of understanding as far as what decisions were made and why. And that's what I've been hearing a lot from people when it comes to changing what we're going to be spending money on or why. So that would be my answer.
Andreas Becker. I'm a little bit confused. I know that municipal budgeting is a complex thing. There are many, many layers to it. But if we were to take it down to something that we're all familiar with, house budgeting, we all have to do that. I don't understand how you can, let's say for example, take dollars out of grocery, borrow them, to buy a new pair of pants, and then over time pay those dollars back with interest to your own grocery budget. It doesn't make sense to me. It seems to me that perhaps in our next council, what we need to do is get a very clear handle on what the budgeting is and the simple, basic elements of it. It appears to be a bit of a shell game right now.
So a familiar theme, fiscal responsibility is something that needs to be happening. We are spending money like crazy, and it's not a good thing. We need to bring in businesses into town to take the burden off of all of you, me, the residential taxpayers. That would then give us more money to move forward on other projects. But again, I find it frustrating that we have projects, very large money projects that are going through that aren't being run through the budget and being discussed. So, thank you.
I mentioned in my opener that I have a fixing community infrastructure plan that I'd like to see council look at. Part of that plan is not just creating a policy for the fixing of roads and bridges, but also creating a policy for investments for future for future work. And I think that's what we're talking about here. It's not about stealing money from your grocery budget. It's about going into your savings account and promising yourself you'll pay that money back. That's precisely what council has done through bylaws when they borrow these monies from reserves. But we need a better policy to guide council moving forward and staff.
Thank you, Hank. I am Mary Tadman still. What I'd like to say, first of all, that someone said that all of council had supported the last budget. I didn't, for a couple of reasons, and one of them I mentioned that I didn't think this was the time to buy a new truck. I wasn't given the information that it was needed. And in other areas in the budget, and I won't go into detail, but I think we need to stick to our budget, and that's why I was not supportive of going forward with the LED lights at the time. Thank you.
Tom Ritwich, Mr. Getgate, I think about when my wife and I bought our first house. We had a converted coal burning furnace that was costing us a ton of money. And the only thing we had to live off of was love. And I feel sorry for my wife because of that. But it meant savings of hundreds and hundreds of dollars for us a year to convert to a high efficiency gas furnace. And that was the best move we ever made. That's what we've done here with the LED. But to touch on the issue that you asked about the reserves when we sold our utility, well, I can tell you we've spent millions of dollars in this budget on road improvements and infrastructure. That money still sits there, and external auditors have come and audited us as is required by the province, and they sat in our council chamber and told us that we are the best managed fiscal community around, that we have healthy surpluses, and that the people of our community should be proud of the work that everybody's undertaken over the last 20 years.
I'm sorry?
Can I ask you a supplementary question for clarification?
Go ahead.
My question is this. The budget said we had $2.5 million in infrastructure reserve. Just name one of them.
In what mean? Do you mean projects or?
In infrastructure reserve fund, according to the budget, had $2.5 million in it.
Yes.
In actual fact, there was $84,000 instead of $2.5 million.
No, I don't believe that's correct.
May I finish? I asked the councillor. I said.
Which councillor?
No, that's not fair.
I think what I would suggest you do, Mr. Getgate, is that you ask our treasurer, Ms. Whitfield, and she'll give you the answer that you're looking for.
May I tell you what he told me? I was told that money to repay that would come from taxes, from future taxes.
Mr.
And that
Getgate,
made sense.
I can tell you that is absolutely not true. And I'm telling you as a councillor, based on my knowledge as the former deputy mayor who presided over the budget, that's absolutely not true.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Getgate. And I think the message around the LED lights has somehow been misconstrued and miscommunicated maybe for the same reason. If I have $500,000 to invest for 10 years, and I can, at the end of that 10 years, save enough money to pay all of that debt back, plus still have another $800,000 in the bank to put towards other infrastructure needs, I don't know where that doesn't make common sense. If we invest $500,000 and we can pay it all back exactly with no penalty to the taxpayer, it's only a benefit when we have the $800,000 in the bank, which would go much farther for infrastructure needs that we do have. I think there are times when opportunities present themselves. The municipality has to have opportunity to capitalize on potential cost savings. Our staff has done, I think, a wonderful job in researching and finding some of these savings for us, and I see it a win-win for everyone.
Thomas Walsh. As a newbie, I don't have the knowledge to answer your question because it's one of my questions. That's one of the reasons I'm running for council is because I want to know where all the stuff's going to. Like, I don't understand, everybody's saying LED lights. They're called LED, light-emitting diodes. If we're going to buy these special lights, why are the lights on 24/7 at the skateboard park? Like, I don't see people skateboarding at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, all these things need to be addressed, and as I say, that's the reason I'm running for council. Thanks for the question. Sorry, thanks for the question, Henry.
Yeah, just before I start, I want to also make it clear, I did not vote for the last budget either. I did not agree with the unsubstantiated and unreasonable request for about $410,000 worth of vehicles and equipment. In my campaign flyer, what I say is, I stand for fiscal responsibility, and every expenditure of Brighton taxpayers' money must be based on credible evidence of necessity. Not once did I see that in the presentation about the LED lighting. And what I find particularly unconscionable about this is that it was not included in the budget, and when I asked for $2,500 to test the water at the Gosport waterfront, I'm told it's not in the budget, therefore it can't be done. But we can find $500,000 to put in something that was not identified as a problem, and that is LED street lighting. The other thing I would say is that it makes no sense to me that we can borrow $500,000 to put in LED street lightings when we know we have a $3 million road job that has to be done at the main entrance into our town on Yonge Street. So, that's it.
Roger McMurray. I have to agree with Councillor Martinello on the LED lighting, because this really was an unforecasted requirement, and it wasn't put into any kind of a queue. It wasn't put forward to be added to other unforecasted requirements and considered at budget time, which it should have been done. We already have the money in the accounts for the street lighting for a short period of time, and you're beating a dead horse. Thank you.
Hi, Don. I thought this was supposed to be looking forward and not back.
Funny you mentioned that.
Because this decision has already been made by this current council, so we can't go back and change what happened. We can move forward and hope that we do realize all the savings that are predicted. As far as the reserves go, from what I understand is we can borrow from those reserves, but it has to be paid back because that money is only to be used for specific reasons. Thank you.
Steve Baker, as you're aware, sir, obviously the budget process is a very complex process. When they're going through the budget for the next year, there are known fixed costs and anticipated costs, and those costs change. I think the issue that we're finding is with some of these larger expenditures that the reasoning behind it is not being conveyed to the public, and I think going forward, that's what we need to improve, is that communication to the public.
David Green, this question is for John Martinello. You have publicly stated and repeated again this evening that you have concerns with the workings of the natural sewage treatment system that we have. The provincial government has not offered any financial assistance. What do you propose as a solution? What would be the cost of this solution? And who would pay for this solution?
Okay, yeah, so I guess I'll answer each of your questions in turn. Ultimately, the taxpayers of Ontario and Brighton would pay for the solution.
The taxpayers or the users?
Let me finish. I'll answer the question. And I look to the example of Crammy. Crammy applied for grants, and they got grants worth $7.3 million, and they upgraded their sewage treatment plant. We haven't bothered to do that. We have been charged by the Ontario Ministry of Environment for polluting this water, the Presque Isle Bay. We have, over this 4 years of council, I've consistently asked, why are we not doing something about this? I've read the annual sewage treatment plans every year they're put out, and every year there are exceedances. And I've repeatedly asked, what are we doing about it? And I've been consistently told, everything's good. The MOE is happy with what we're doing. And then on April 16th of 2014 of this year, we're charged by the MOE. I'll go back to what we would do about it. I'd say we apply for grants, like every other municipality does. Quinte West is applying for about $9 million worth of grants to upgrade its sewage treatment plant. Tyandanega got $20 million last year to upgrade its water treatment plant. We should be facing the fact that it isn't working, and we should begin to work to make sure it works.
Anyone else want to go? Thank you, Mr. Martinello. Thank you.
Folks, it's important to realize that yes, if you flush your toilet, it will go where it needs to go. And we've done extensive work to our sewer treatment facility. We've dredged it. We've spent a significant amount of money. And I think what you all need to know is that if you have a toilet that you flush in town, you pay for whatever the treatment is. It's not the people who live in the country, it's those of us who live in town. And one thing we have to remember here, I pay more money to the federal government in taxes than I do to the municipality. It's all out of the same pocket. But what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, we have a system that's working. We've heard here tonight that we've been charged 5 times. We have not been charged 5 times. We've been charged once. And Mr. Martinello, and with all due respect, will suggest that he's been told nothing. But if you want to Google, Google's a wonderful thing. And look at all of the past agendas, and you'll see exactly all of the reports that all of us have voted on. He continues to vote against receiving information from the Ministry of the Environment because it doesn't satisfy him. We are doing the work we need to do, and when you flush your toilet, it will go where it belongs to go.
Mr. Martinello, I'll let a few others first, and then you can come back.
I'll be quick. It's hard to get money from grants from the federal and provincial government when you keep saying there isn't a problem. There is a problem.
We know our existing sewage treatment facility has had some exceedances, but unless and until we know why those exceedances exist, I don't believe we should be making heroic efforts to spend $20 million on a sewage treatment plant, because, or more. Until I understand whether it's something coming in or a problem with the existing system, I think we should just hold off. The only real reason to build a sewage treatment facility would be so that we can build more homes in Brighton. And if that's what we want to do, then the developers of the community should pay for the new sewage treatment facility.
Really? I don't think we should be polluting the fresh water that's only left in the world at all. I mean, this is wrong. If we say we don't need a sewage treatment plant, what are these poo-blues and things that everybody keeps telling us about that's going to save the day? I've canoed through the bay and seen the raw sewage in the bay, so whether it's exceedings, I don't know. But I've seen the raw sewage, and something does need to be done. Thank you.
Mary Tadman, and my first time running for council, I ran because I live at Gosport, directly below the stench that comes out of that sewage treatment plant, and I've been told that it's everything but you know what. And I worked hard and diligently during that time to get it dredged, but it took up until last year to even get it dredged. But I have lived here, as I've said before, all my life, and I see the marshland filling up. Something's wrong, and I do agree that we need to do better for our citizens and for the users of the sewage treatment. Thank you.
As I said earlier, I'm a bit of a chatty Cathy, so I talk to a lot of folks. This morning's it can work. This morning's conversation was with one of the local biologists who explained to me that indeed there is brown matter coming out of the lagoon, and it is polluting, and things are dying there, if not completely dead already. It's visible by air, it's visible when you're kayaking through there, and that's all the stuff that's flowing out of our community, not quite successfully doing what it's supposed to do. We can't ignore the sewage problem. We can't ignore the water treatment problem. It's what happened in Walkerton. What we need to do is start now building a plan that's already looking for the larger infrastructure that we're going to need. This morning, I saw stats. Our housing starts are up 7%. we're the highest in the region. All the rest of the region with lower housing starts are doing something about their water and we're not.
Yeah, so I'll respond to Mr. Green and to what Mr. Ostrander and Councillor Ritwich said is, I believe it's short sight to say that we're going to have the developers pay for the new sewage treatment plant. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to bring economic development to this town. So what happens when, say, a small food processor comes into this town, into our new multi-million-dollar industrial park, and says, I need 100,000 cubic meters of wastewater treatment capacity per day? What do we tell them then? If we tell them we can't do it, and I suspect we can't, then we've got a problem. And we might have put the cart before the horse. And I'll go back to this. If we were not, let's see, I gotta rephrase this. I'm confident that we are polluting the bay and something's wrong with the plant, or the Ministry of Environment would not be charging us. And when I say 5 charges, I mean 5 charges under the Ontario Water Resources Act. I could show you the summons if you want to see it. So we have been charged 5 times under the Ontario Water Resources Act. I think it's essential that we not only get this sewage treatment plant working in terms of economic development, but protecting Presque Isle Bay. Presque Isle Bay is one of the main reasons that people come to live here. Presque Isle Bay is an important source of recreation and other things for a lot of people, and that this should not be a divisive issue. People north and south, rural and urban, ratepayer and taxpayer, they all benefit by a clean Presque Isle Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly there can be no argument that we need to protect Presque Isle Bay. As far as the sewage treatment plant goes, I think it's important to keep it in perspective that we have one particular problem. We have ammonia exceedances. And it's not an exact science of how those things get fixed. And there's been various proposals by consultants, in other words, put forward as how it would be fixed, and they didn't work. Finally, we got an order on that you will do a certain amount of work. Our staff researched a project that is the Biodome project and took it to the ministry, and they altered their work order, or their order on us, ministerial order, to adopt that Biodome project because it's innovative technology that they want to apply right across Ontario, and Brighton will be at the leading edge of introducing that technology to Brighton. And the other point is, it's clearly established that we have sufficient capacity in our current sewage treatment plant to handle all of the growth that has been forecasted up until 2034. So it's not a capacity problem, it's an ammonia problem.
Roger?
Roger McMurray. I have made a habit out of reading the wastewater annual reports, and I have a good handle on what's happening down there. And ammonia is not the only problem. It isn't. The E. coli has gone up, I believe it was from 2012 or 2011, 2012 by 200%, and that's flowing directly into the bay water. Bay is our lifeblood here in Brighton, and we have to protect it one way or another. And back in 1959, my shop teacher, Bill Robb, said Brighton was floating, and I couldn't believe, I couldn't understand what he was saying. But what he was saying was everybody was on septic at that time. So that's what he was saying. But in the 60s, they put a sewage treatment plant in, and for the most part, it's worked pretty well. But it is failing. It stinks. It stunk then, and it stinks now. Thanks.
Joyce, you want to, yes? I'm going to entertain one more question, and that will be you. Go ahead, Joyce.
There's no doubt that there's an issue with our water treatment system, or our wastewater treatment system. I believe it needs to be investigated fully, and whatever the MOE decides is what we are allowed to do, then we're going to have to move forward with it. Be that a mechanical plant, or whether it's just improving the system we have right now. Thank you.
you like to comment on it, Steve?
Not only as a candidate, but as a taxpayer, I'm willing to wait for the outcome of this lawsuit or charges by the MOE and see what recommendations they make, and we can take those recommendations and decide our future as a community. Thank you.
Next and last question. Sorry, sir.
My name is Annie Boulanger. Shall you be re-elected or elected? Do you have a project, an event, something that you will propose and push forward to bring in some tourism dollars into Brighton in order to help the local businesses and services? That should be quick and light.
Yes. I think we'll start with Steve on the other end, please.
I mentioned earlier about the max melt, that I do not support that. One of the things I'd like to see go in that corner is something akin to the Capitol Theatre in Port Hope. I don't know if any of you have ever gone to the Capitol Theatre in Port Hope. They offer live performances as well as film, and I think that would cover all of the citizens, young and old.
Thank you, Andy. Joyce Casson. I believe economic development and tourism go hand in hand, and we need to come to work harder with the county to bring more opportunities into Brighton. As Steve said, great idea for a theater at that corner. I would love to see something like that, or something that's going to be more attractive than another gas bar.
Put a Tim Hortons there.
Roger?
Roger McMurray. Well, as a garage sale junkie, I would certainly like to see a lot more garage sales in town. Right now, we have to go to Trenton and places like that to entertain ourselves on Saturday morning, and I'm getting tired of it. Thank you.
Well, I'll speak from my experience in Picton, Ontario. Is my wife and daughter and I, we go into Picton quite a bit in the summer months, and when we go into McDonald's, it takes us, say, 2.5 or 3 minutes to get out of the McDonald's because of the traffic jam on Picton's main drag. So that gives me time to look in the cars that go by, and I see a lot of people that look like they're camping with families. And what I suspect is happening is, and it goes to what a gentleman just said here, is they've got Tim Horton and a McDonald's there. And what is probably happening there is probably what happened to me as a kid, is every 2 or 3 days when we were camping out at the Pine Ridge Provincial Park, we would come into town for a treat at the local, it was a hotel at Grand Bend. And what is probably happening at Picton is the people who are eating sand and hot dogs and sandbanks come in every 2 or 3 days to the Tim Hortons and McDonald's, and they jam the streets. So I do believe that a Tim Hortons in this town would be a great boom for economic development, and I think that council should do all they can to promote a Tim Hortons in this town.
Are we done with the coffee thing? I don't drink coffee, so that's all. What I have been trying to do, though, is bring film companies to Brighton and Presqu'île Park to use this area as a film location like they do in Coburg. And I would like to see simple things like a TV screen or a movie screen on the side of the arena so we could sit there in our lawn chairs and watch movies, an outdoor skating rink, anything that, promotes community involvement. Thank you.
Hi, Annie. Thank you for the question, Emily Rowley. I think the Brighton bus has been a good start. As Councillor Kerr said earlier, it is an embryo, but I think it is something that can promote our downtown more if we can maybe get it a few more days coming from Presqu'île. I should say I sit on the Bay of Quinte Tourism Council, and we just had a wonderful all candidates meeting this morning where some of us were there, some weren't, not everyone could make it. But I think working with the regional councils as well, whether it be Northumberland Tourism or whether it be Bay of Quinte, we can leverage the dollars that we use that we give to them, that we put all of our dollars together, it not only brings more tourism to Brighton, but it brings it to the region. So if the whole region benefits, Brighton will benefit as well.
Certainly no disrespect to Mr. Baker, but I watch all of my live theater at the Brighton Barn Theater, and they do a hell of a job. I do have an idea, and it starts with making Division Street one way from Main Street down to Park. It allows for more parking to come back along Main Street, closing off Veterans Way from Main Street to the end of the CIBC and building a market-type structure and getting away from the shackles of the provincial government where if you'll grow it, you can only sell it, and allowing vendors to come in there on Saturdays and Sundays and do so. That would also extend parking up Main Street, so we increase more parking spaces for our businesses on Main Street. This is what we need. So I believe that there is an opportunity there for us if we can all get on the same page, and that goes to our downtown revitalization and our community development plan. But that's something that we've talked about around the council table, and that's something that I would like to push forward, similar to how I push forward with the dog park. So that's what I'll be looking to. Thank you.
Mary Tadman again. I kind of like Tom Walsh's idea of things, and I think I'm going to vote for you, Tom. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Brian Ostrander. As a current public library board member and former library board member, my major project for investment would be a new library. I've just got to be open and honest with you about that. In terms of event for tourism, friends, we just had one of the most successful Apple Fest, well, the most successful Apple Fest I've ever seen. So that committee, that group, the groups that came together to do that will get my 100% support should you elect me on the 27th. Thank you.
So I guess just from a couple of different standpoints. One, I'm getting tired of having to bribe my coworkers at Colborne and Trenton to pick me up a coffee in the morning when I go to work. So I think at Tim Hortons and McDonald's, that kind of thing would definitely help. But the other thing is, and I'm not sure the exact number, but I think I heard 350,000 people passing through Presqu'île Provincial Park every year, and we need to do a better job of getting those people to our downtown, because our downtown core is second to none as far as I'm concerned. We can always be doing better, but it's a great community, and it's a shame to see so many trailers and stuff going by, heading down to the park. That's where they spend their weekend, and then they drive back out of town again. We need to get them in and spending their money. So, thank you.
Andreas Becker. Hi, Annie Boulanger, one of our Francophone members of the community. Bonjour. There are a number of things that we can do here, and one of the things that we don't do is encourage our nature tourism. I'm not talking just about the birding that goes on, but we have incredible wild foods here. Why not have a wild food festival? And I don't mean behaving wildly, I mean the foods itself. Things like triathlon, kayaking through the bay once it's cleaned up, cycling around Presqu'île, swimming, running. We have quite a large runners community. I've recently become a member of that. You'll see me running around the community with my Running for Brighton Council t-shirts on. Those are all things that are open to us that would be really important for our tourism. And what we forget is that tourism is the doorway open to Brighton growth, because people come here, love our community, and want to move here. And that's how we grow.
Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you for your question. After living here for many years, I participated in a farmer's market as a child, and also as with my daughter when she was growing up as well. And I would love to see a farmer's market, but and that be part of more of a bigger plan. I'd like to see the downtown expand a bit. We've been growing. We need to have a bigger downtown area, a market. a vital library, programs, not just for tourists, but for the people who live here. Those things will benefit both, and I'd like to see that happen.
I guess if I had to pick one thing for the next immediate future that we should be concentrating on, I would echo what Mr. Ostrander said, and that would be the library, but in conjunction with the creative trade manufacturing facility that is being contemplated under the Branding project, because I think the two have a lot of synergy there that would provide an absolute hub for the community, especially for the downtown area, and that's where my first priority would be. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I understand that it's a little bit difficult to maybe read or interpret the voting form. I'm going to ask Gail Frost to come up and perhaps explain it to us. Gail, are you here? I'm personally not sure exactly how it works. What was really sad is when I went out and asked if I was on the rolls, I am not.
Thank you, and I know it's been a long evening, so I'll only take a quick minute, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about the importance of the ballots that are coming out and how to make sure that your vote gets counted. So to let you know that the municipality of Brighton, for those that are new, we do vote by mail. And so you will receive in your mailbox a ballot if you are on the voters list. I do have a voters list here. I'll stay as long as anyone is here wants to check and see if you're on the list to make sure that you get a ballot. You can also go online, www.brighton.ca, and check to see if you're on the voters list there. If you're not, you need to come into the municipal office, bring photo ID and proof of where you live so that we can verify you live in Brighton, and we will provide you with a ballot. For those that are on the list, and hopefully most of you are, the ballots will be in the mail tomorrow. We've been advised tonight that the ballots are prepared and ready to go, and so they will be in the mail tomorrow. If you don't receive your ballot by the middle to the end of next week, if you give us a call or drop in, we will check and see if a ballot was mailed to you, and we will provide you with a replacement ballot closer to the 27th if you don't receive your ballot. We are asking that everyone that does have a ballot, you have 2 ways to return it. You can mail it back, and we're asking you to have them in the mail around the 17th or the 18th. Canada Post is saying the 18th to ensure it gets to us by the 27th. Or you can drop them into the municipal office starting on the 18th. Through business hours, we will have a ballot box there. You can drop them off and put them directly in the ballot box if you would like. Because we use vote by mail, we also use vote tabulators, which is a machine that counts the votes on the ballot. So we don't count them by hand, we use a machine. So we ask you not to use a tick or an X beside the candidate that you choose. We ask you to fill the box in. There's a square beside the candidate's name. Fill it in completely with a black pen or marker so that the machine can pick up your vote. What it looks for is about 80% of that box to be completed so that it's sure that that's the vote that you want. So please fill that box in. We're trying to get that message out. We're running some ads on the radio and the newspaper, and tell everyone, please fill that box in. It's really important. If you don't get your ballot, let us know. We'll make sure you get one. Thank you, Don.
Is there any question before Gail gets away?
We're asking you to use a black pen or a marker, but if it's nice and dark.
So do I understand if it's an X or a check mark, it will not count?
Okay, I think that's the same question you were asking. So what happens during the evening is we sequester the room that we do the count in. The machine will try to pick up the counts. If it can't read the ballot, it sends it back out. And it basically says it can't read, it can't determine for sure the intent of the elector. We do have then remarking stations where we will take the ballot, we take another ballot, and we mark the ballot if we can clearly determine the intent of the elector. When we do that, we have the candidates have scrutineers in the room, And we have scrutineers sit at the table with the remarkers, and we have them actually initial that they agree that the intent of the voter was the way it was. So we try to make sure that every single vote is counted, but in order to make sure, please fill that box in, and we'll do the best we can to make sure that your vote gets counted.
Do you have a cost on that whole mail-in procedure?
The entire election, I think I'm going by memory. If you give me a call tomorrow, I can tell you for sure. I think it's around $34,000 for the whole election.
And what's the difference if we go and vote somewhere?
If we were to run polls, then what we would have polls in different areas of the municipality. We would have to have workers at all of those polls. We actually did a cost-benefit analysis. We went to tabulators, and it was no more expensive, but what it did was it made it much quicker. The return on the count is usually in around 9 or 9:30. The polls close at 8 o'clock. If it's counted by hand, I've seen it go to the next morning if you have trouble with the ballots. It also it leaves it so it's not discretionary either. The machine picks it up rather than a person trying to determine the count.
What happens to people who have disabilities, like say Parkinsonism or something that have difficulty filling that box?
Sure. They can, because it comes to your home, they can have a family member assist them if they like. They can also call our office, and we will provide them with assistance through our office. We'll actually come to the home, assist with the ballot, and deliver the ballot back if asked.
Thanks very much, Gail.
Thank you. We do use vote tabulators. We try to get the counts in early. We try to not leave it to discretion, and that's the system that we use in Brighton.
Thank you. Okay, each of the candidates is now going to have a 2-minute summary. After that, the candidates will make themselves available to have individual discussions with you. I'm going to start with the other end, Steve Baker. I'll tell you what, Steve, just hang on a second. Steve, I don't think it's you personally.
Thanks for that, John. You still on here? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Steve Baker. I have one request. The running of your municipality is a serious business, and it is a business. The people that you elect are responsible for millions and millions of dollars. It's important that your vote is an informed vote, that you look at the people before you tonight, in spite of the comic relief, you look at their qualifications and vote who will best represent you over the next 4 years and be responsible for your tax dollars. Thank you.
Joyce Casson. I believe that working together with all members of the newly elected council and dealing with staff in a professional manner, listening to staff and expert advice to find evidence-based solutions to issues, they're the top priorities in my book. I promise to listen and keep an open mind if I should be elected onto council on October 27th. I do promise to listen well, to hear what your concerns are should you make Joyce your choice.
Roger McMurray. In my introduction, I stated that I have the time, commitment, temperament, and patience to do a good job. I will elaborate. First is the word time. As a municipal ratepayer, I paid property taxes like you and was concerned at the ever-escalating levels of municipal budgets. I invested time to attend council meetings, read the agenda package, and format questions for a question period. I invested time to draft input for citizens' comment, to bring areas of concern to the press, the public, and council members. I invested time to draft input. I invested time to examine annual budgets in detail and provide comments at public meetings. I made time to create spreadsheets and graphs to illustrate the level of my concern and provide them to municipal staff during budget deliberations. I invested time to slog through a myriad of financial reports to extract wages and benefits data to try and determine where this class's spending was going. I invested time to produce spreadsheets and graphs covering the period 2005 to 2013 to highlight changes in wages and benefits over time. I invested time writing letters to the editor when things went off the rails at council. It's very easy to see which word is the most valuable. Time is precious and should only be used to promote positive outcomes. I have done my best to do that. The fact that I invested my time graphically illustrates the level of my commitment to this municipality. I have an even temperament and patience without end, having grown up with 9 younger siblings and spending 31 years serving our country at home and abroad. My commitment to Brighton is unshakable, and if elected, I will continue to work for the well-being of every citizen. Thank you very much for listening.
In my opening remarks, I spoke mostly about money and infrastructure, 2 issues that are central to moving Brighton into a better future. In these closing remarks, I will want to speak about a less tangible issue, and that is respect. In knocking on doors throughout my campaign, I heard too often that people do not attend council meetings or participate on committees because of the tone and tenor of this council. A new council must include councillors who will respect all of the citizens they are paid to represent, even those citizens who disagree with them. Brighton now includes people from all across Canada, people who bring a broad range of experience and training to Brighton, people whose skills and knowledge could be very beneficial to making Brighton a better place for all people to live. If the new council wants to ensure that all Brighton citizens participate in the process of making Brighton a better place for all to live, then all of the new council must ensure that they treat all citizens with the respect and transparency they deserve. Good night, and thank you all for making time in your busy schedule to attend this forum.
Hi, Thomas Walsh. Thank you all for attending. Sorry about, oops. My argument with this microphone. Thanks, James. As I said earlier, I'm not going to make promises. I can't foretell the future. I don't know what's going to happen. When I get elected, then I'll start making promises and taking bribes. As for slandering other candidates or anything, I'm not going to do it. I think the previous town councillors, or the incumbents as we call them, have done an excellent job putting up with all the slander and gossip everybody spreads about us. And I just want to thank everyone here on the panel for standing up and running for council. Thank you.
As we look forward to October, I ask for your support based on my hard work and my commitment during the last 8 years. Thank you for taking an interest in the direction and future of our community, and I only hope that I will be privileged to represent you and share my passion to move our community forward throughout the next term. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Brighton and Cranby Chamber of Commerce for holding an all-candidates debate this evening. And thank you for inviting everyone to be here. Folks, one of the things that we see and we've seen over the last 4 years, in which is not beneficial to anybody, is the politics of fear. This evening we've heard that we're polluting our bay. It's impossible for our lagoon to disperse human waste into the bay. It can't happen. It doesn't happen. It's impossible. We've also heard about $450,000 being spent on new equipment, but what you did not hear is the hundreds of thousands of dollars it took us to repair the equipment that we wanted to replace that was 20, 25, and 30 years old.
Everybody here knows who has a household budget, that how you go about business is ensuring that you keep things up so that the costs don't build up as we move along. That's what I wanted to say about the last 4 years. What I want to talk about is the next 4 years. And I've talked about this evening in my opening remarks that we need to listen to the community who have told us loud and clear that we need condominiums, whether it's for seniors or whether it's for folks who are not seniors. My mother is a senior, I won't say her age. Her house is getting too big and she wants to stay in Brighton. We need to start working towards that end. We also need to look at ensuring that the folks who live out in the country, I talked to a lady up on Hobbs Road and Crammy Hill Road 2 weeks ago, and I said to her, I really feel sorry about the fact that you're way out here. She does her shopping in Warkworth and Campbellford, and what do you get from us? Well, she gets a plowed road from us, and we try to plow it as best we can. But what we have to do is look at what the future is. I remember when the population sign said 2,200 people, and we're growing. We've just heard tonight that our numbers are rising in houses. We have to have a vision for the future. That includes economic development. We need people to come and live in the houses of the seniors who currently occupy them and bring our tax base up so that we, the residential taxpayer, do not bear that burden. I have a vision. Take a look at everything that I've put in my pamphlet. You all got it in the mail last week. And I thank you all for coming out this evening. Good night.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, we're done with that. Would you sit down, please?
I'm Mary Tabman, and I just want to thank everybody here for coming and being so patient with all of us. And I also want to thank my fellow members up here for having the guts to go through this, because it's hard sometimes. And I want to thank the Chamber and you, Dawn, James, everyone else that had a part of this. I have listened for the last 4 years and listened and asked questions of all of you ratepayers as I met you to make my decisions. I promise I will do the same for the next 4 years. I will be your voice of reason. Thank you.
Brian Ostrander. Thank you again to the Chamber for tonight. We've all heard that, from everyone up here essentially, that infrastructure planning, economic development, and some form of accountability or another need to take top priority in the next term of council. The question that only you can answer is who will best be able to bring those policies to fruition in the next 4 years. I was privileged to represent you on council for 2 terms, from 2003 to 2010. I always took the time then and now to listen to what you have and had to say, and work to bring your ideas to the council table and solve our community's problems for the benefit of everyone. For the past 4 years, I've had the benefit of working closely with various boards and committees throughout our communities to solve some important concerns and map some new courses. As chairperson at Trinity St. Andrews, we developed some important policies together to make our church more responsible to its members and more open to this community. At the Northumberland United Way, we have begun the important process of realigning financial and service delivery that makes more sense for the current needs in our communities. There may yet be a tough road ahead for Brighton Council, but a road that I am more than capable of traveling with your help. I hope that you will see in me a candidate that will hold true to the ideals of a truly representative democratic style, one where I bring your ideas to council, not vice versa. One who brings knowledge and proven experience to the table and can really help get things done. It is only in listening to everyone that our council will better behave as a group that represents your needs. We must take the time to hear you and work with you to be the Brighton we know we can be. Thank you.
Scott Huizinga. I just want to thank everyone again for coming. Just an observation that I made both at the last candidates meeting and this one. We have almost 300 people here today. I think we can probably fit maybe 30 or 40 people into the council chambers. If you go to NorthumberlandView.ca, they're webcasting and this is all online so that you can go and watch it. I'm glad that we're recording our sessions now, but I'd like to see that in the council chambers, because there's people that can't get out of their house, or they work and they can't attend. And again, you've got 30 seats. So I would like to see that, that our sessions are being recorded, both video and audio. And again, it comes down to a question of accountability, because if I say something, I should be standing behind what I say. And I think that that's important. So thank you all for coming, and I would be honored to be a representative on Brighton Council. Thank you.
I've made so many notes. There's so many details we know. First of all, thank you to everybody for coming out. As councillor, that's not even where I want to go. I'm going to just start right all over again. In council, one of the things that I noticed is that almost with fear, the community that comes up to speak at council chambers, because it's not user-friendly for any of you. I have a vision that in our new council, that we have a structure where not 24, did you say, seats? For the community versus 7 of the councillors, that the council chamber be returned to you, the community. It's your voice that counts, it's your direction that counts, it's your comfort zone in our council chamber that counts, and that's what I will be bringing back into the council. And I think that's all I have to say. That's it. It's your council. Choose well.
Hi, Laura Vink. We've heard a lot of issues tonight, and I know there are a lot of issues here, but I love this town. I think we live in an amazing community, and I don't want that to be overshadowed by all these issues. I really would like to see a council that works together, that listens, that's respectful, not only listens to each other, but to the community. I've been talking to a lot of people as well, door to door, and hearing the needs, and the biggest one is that the council functions in a respectful manner and starts listening to people. And that's what I have to offer, and I hope that whoever is in the next council, whether I'm there or not, that everyone has heard what people have said, and that it's time for a change, and it's time to move forward. And that's what I'd like to see. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you. It's been an interesting evening, and it's obvious that there's widely disparate views on the priorities and how this community should grow and develop. And it's obvious, just as obvious, there are no simple solutions to the various things that have been brought up tonight. So we're going to need some very dedicated people and a whole lot of cooperation in moving forward. But the good news, I think, is that there's a vision for this community that's been developed over successive years. And I think we need to continue with that vision and develop it with a long-term approach, especially as part of the greater Quinte economic region and of the Northumberland County. I've been involved in the urban planning and on the economic development and such like for the last 2 terms of council. And I would very much like to have your support that I can continue that work. I'd like to thank you all for your participation here tonight, and good evening. Thank you.
I think I'd like a round of applause for the courage that these people have to sit here before you. So you now know what you have to do. You have to vote for somebody. You're going to be looking at this group of people and deciding who is your candidate, who's going to make you a good counselor. So please think about what you've heard and act appropriately. I'm going to say thank you on behalf of the chamber, and I appreciate the crowd that has shown up tonight. Thank you.